podcast. I'm Deacon Mike Houghton. I'm the Executive Director of an apostolate called UTG at Work. Our mission is to help women and men joyfully live their faith and witness to Christ in the gospel in the workplace. I'm happy to be with you as we explore the Sunday gospel in ways that help people who work. You can find this podcast as well as helpful articles, videos, and other materials on our website, which is utgatwork.org. You can also subscribe to this podcast through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcasting sites. This weekend we celebrate Christ the King Sunday, and our gospel is a reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Glory to you, O Lord. Pilate said to Jesus, "Are you the King of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you say this on your own, or have others told you about me?" Pilate answered, "I am not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom does not belong to this world. If my kingdom did belong to this world, my attendants would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not here." So Pilate said to him, "Then you are a king." Jesus answered, "You say I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." The gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. So often on this Sunday of Christ the King, we try to find words to accurately describe the kingship of Jesus Christ. And it seems that in each and every case, we wind up with something that falls short of the goal. How can we accurately and fully describe the reign of the King of the universe, especially given that his kingship is far beyond any other kingship that we could ever understand? Jesus is the Lord of you and me, of time and space, of everything that is and was and ever shall be. There are no words to accurately describe that. We feebly try to compare his kingship to that of earthly kings and rulers of our time, to historical kings and rulers, and the like, but we ultimately come up short. And so most people who preach on Christ the King Sunday end up feeling like we've failed. So allow me to take a slightly different angle on this Christ the King Sunday. I want to focus not on Jesus, but rather on Pilate, the one who condemned Jesus to death. Pontius Pilate, whose full name was Marcus Pontius Pilate, was the Roman prefect or governor of Judea under the Roman Emperor Tiberius at the time of Jesus' trial and crucifixion. By many accounts, he wasn't an entirely bad person. He may even have liked Jesus. Consider what we hear about Pilate in the Gospel accounts. Luke tells us that he made 3 separate attempts to have Jesus released. We read from chapter 23 of Luke. Pilate addressed them a 3rd time. "What evil has this man done? I find him guilty of no capital crime. Therefore, I shall have him flogged and then release him." He was trying to punish Jesus to keep the crowds happy, but he didn't want to have him killed. This may have been his own sentiment, or perhaps he was influenced by the advice of his wife, who Matthew tells us sent him a message that said, "Have nothing to do with this righteous man. I suffered much in a dream today because of him." But the angry mob continued to push for Jesus to be killed, and so Pilate gave in to their demands. Luke tells us, with loud shouts, however, they persisted in calling for his crucifixion, and their voices prevailed. The verdict of Pilate was that their demand should be granted. Now, I don't claim to be a Bible scholar, but I do find it interesting that Pilate tried 3 times to pull himself out of the crucifixion of Jesus, much like Peter's 3-time denial of the Lord on Holy Thursday. Pilate didn't want to crucify Jesus. This is clear. And yet, he did. So what's the lesson for all of us some 2,000 years later? What can we learn from the words and actions of Pilate? Allow me to compare the role that he played in Jesus' crucifixion to the role that Judas played in it, to share a perspective that I think is helpful for all of us today. Pilate really didn't want a role in the crucifixion, while Judas intentionally handed Jesus over to be crucified. These 2 actions don't involve the same degree of guilt. Indeed, Jesus himself told Pilate, "You would have no power over me if it had not been given you from above. For this reason, the one who handed me over to you has the greater sin." But did Pilate contribute to the crucifixion of the Lord? Of course he did. It was, after all, ultimately his decision. And so even though he knew that something wasn't right about what was happening, he went along with it. In our world today, we don't have a lot of Judases. There are precious few people who actively try to bring harm to the Lord or to his church. But we have a preponderance of Pilates. There are countless people who probably don't really want to hurt the Lord, but who are in fact unwilling to take the necessary steps to support him. The Judases of the world seek to kill Jesus with a decisive blow, while the Pilates, despite the fact that they wash their hands and try to eliminate their guilt, heal him by 1,000 cuts. So who are the modern-day Pilates? Well, if you know anything about UTG at work, I'm sure you know what I'm about to say. The modern-day Pilates are the men and women in the workforce who worship the Lord on Sunday, but who come to work on Monday where they create, defend, and implement policies that try to force employees to not mention Jesus, their faith, or anything connected with the church. These people, like Pilate, don't want to kill Jesus. In fact, they may actually like him. And they're less accountable for their sins than the Judases of the world are for theirs. But they ultimately contribute to his persecution in the workplace. No, they don't seek to deal Jesus or the church a deathly blow, but they do it by 1,000 cuts with policies, firings, and persecutions of people of faith at work. I'm seldom as direct in my homilies as I am today, but please know that I don't mean to offend anyone. I do, however, mean to correct in the spirit of fraternal love. If you are one of the Pilates in your workplace, you are well advised to reconsider your actions. What you say and do is ultimately your decision, not the company's decision. You always have the option of disagreeing or pushing back or even seeking employment elsewhere. Jesus is indeed King of the universe. He is Lord of Lords. His reign will last forever. Today we celebrate this reality. I suspect that few, if anyone, listening to this podcast are living like Judas. But I suspect that some may well be living like Pilate. Today is a great day to pause and consider how your life and your actions reflect your belief in the King of Kings. If he is Lord of your heart and your soul, then don't let your actions tell a different story. Don't let your words betray what you believe. Be strong and stand up for the King of the universe, for one day he will show everyone, those who believe and those who don't, that our actions have consequences. Thanks for joining me for this week's UTG at Work podcast. I look forward to meeting again next week. In the meantime, I encourage you to boldly live your faith in the workplace in the week ahead. I'll pray for your success, and I ask that you pray for the success of this UTG at Work apostolate. If you want to learn more about us, please visit utgatwork.org. Now go in peace, glorifying the Lord by your life.